I would say that the most frequently asked question that I get has to do with Maggie and the papers that she holds in her hand just about all the time. And that is what I'm talking about today. Maggie is our 9-year-old who is on the autism spectrum. If you've watched our channel for any length of time, or really any videos that Maggie's in, you'll see that she's holding a stack of usually papers, stickers, and some little figurines all jumbled together in one hand. When she's getting her harness on, if she can't fit them through one arm, she'll put them in her other hand, put her arm through, switch hands, and put it through the other side. It's something that is obviously a great comfort to her. And a lot of people are very curious about it because it's something that has always been such a part of her almost. It's something that I hadn't even given that much thought to. It wasn't always papers, and it wasn't always this obvious. When she was little, she always had little red toys in her hands, and they were usually small, and they would basically just kind of fit in the palm of her hand, and she would just carry them around. If they were taken away, she would look around, find something else that was small and red, like a block or a ball, just something that fit perfectly in the palm of her hand, and she would pick that up. She changed them around kind of constantly. The only thing that was really consistent about what she had in her hands at that point was that it was almost always red. Really, the first time I noticed that was when she went through her autism evaluations and testing. Of course, everyone else noticed that, and then I was sort of like, oh, yeah, I guess she does do that. There were so many things when we went through testing that they were just Maggie. They were just things that Maggie did, and they were totally normal to us, that were just, oh, okay, that's because she's on the spectrum. That's Maggie. But it was, for us, it was just always Maggie. It was always what she'd done, and it was totally normal. And so a lot of the things aren't things that I ever really gave much thought to why. Other things are. I mean, when Tessie spins and spins around, I know that it's a stimming thing. I know that it's a vestibular seeking thing. When Tessie's dropping sand down, I know that, and watching it like this, I know that it's a visual stim. There are a lot of things that I catch and do say like, oh, that's because of that. She's doing that because of that. But a lot of things are just normal and how it's always been. When I started getting questions months ago about the papers, I thought, oh, I should really make a video about that. And I guess I just assumed that when I Googled and looked up autism and holding things in your hands, because I know it's something that a lot of little kids do, that a lot of people do, I assumed that there would be a lot out there, that I would find tons of answers and explanations, that it would tell me that it was a stim, that it would tell me it was a security thing, something. There would be a lot on the internet because it seemed like there should be. And so I Googled and I found a sensory website. A forum came up, and it was hundreds and hundreds of posts. People being like, my kid does that, my kid does that, my kid does that, and with different things. And everyone was talking about what things their kid used, or even adults and teenagers saying, I do that, this is what I do, this is what I do. I've always wondered why, or people saying that it made them feel relaxed, that it makes them feel more at ease, secure, and I've always wondered why I do it. But as much as I searched, I couldn't find anything that came anywhere close to feeling like an answer, which was really odd because usually you can find things like, oh, this stim is a response to needing this sort of stimulation. And that feels like an answer that makes sense. For something that seems like it's somewhat common, it seemed like there would be more information out there, but apparently there isn't. So the next thing I did was I ran into one of Maggie's old therapists, and I asked her what she thought. And after that, I went to Maggie's current therapist, and I said the same thing. The compilation of answers that I've come up with, the thought seems to be that it's partially a sensory thing, that she does get some reinforcement in a sensory way as a stim from the feeling of the paper, the sound of the paper in her hand, and that it is a security thing, that she feels more secure and gets some comfort out of holding those things in her hand. And her current therapist also feels that it's part of her OCD, and that she does get great comfort out of having her papers. And we talked about it a little bit. The only time that the papers become problematic is that she does have a tendency to find more and more papers that she loves and more labels that she loves, and she just sort of adds to the collection that she carries around. It gets bigger and bigger until it gets to the point where it's hard for her to carry it around, and then she'll start dropping them, and we'll be, say, walking across a parking lot. It always seems to happen when we're walking across a parking lot, and one of the pieces will fall down, and then she'll get really upset and frantic, and it ends up being us frantically trying to pick up stickers or papers in a parking lot, and it's dangerous and she's upset. It's just not a very good situation, and I've tried to suggest to her maybe we could put them in a bag, maybe we could hold them in a purse, and she has so many mermaid backpacks, mermaid purses. She has no interest in any of her fun, cool mermaid bags with stickers on them or anything like that. So that's just been a no, and I'm sure that's partially because part of what she likes about it is how it feels in her hand. So really for me, the biggest thing is when I see the pile starting to get bigger, saying like, okay, we're going in the store, you can take one or you can take two, and getting her to leave the rest of them in the car. There were comments a long time back where someone commented about, I hope she doesn't carry those around at school. School was actually the place where she would get all the papers and the stickers. Most of the time at school, they did have to stay at her desk, and there was a place for them at her desk, and she would know that they were safe there. And the same thing, when she's at therapy, they have to stay in her office, and she puts them down when she gets there, and she knows that they'll be there when she comes back. But at home, it is really different. At home, I can't think of a single good reason really to take that comfort away from her other than to make her look more normal, and that really isn't something that motivates me. If someone sees her holding papers in her hand and they're bothered by that, I really see that as more their problem than our problem. And honestly, when we're out and about, I don't think papers are probably even something that really registers with most people as the most different thing about our group. For me, if it's something that she gets comfort out of, that calms her down, that helps her, I am totally on board with that. On the other hand, for me, the problem begins when it does start to become a safety issue, like when we're in the parking lot. And so managing that, keeping it to a manageable size that she can hold without dropping, and just making sure that it doesn't make her more anxious, because when she's really motivated by things, they definitely do, she'll get anxious about them. Kind of walking that fine line between letting her have them but not letting her have so many that it becomes an issue or that her anxiety increases is definitely the line that we're kind of like going back and forth over all the time. And sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse. And anytime you throw stickers in, we go off the rails because stickers make the anxiety like go exponentially up. So stickers are out. In terms of papers and figurines, that is the best answer that I have, and I really feel like it is at least partially a guess. If you're on the spectrum and you have any knowledge on this area, I would love to hear your insight, because again, I do feel like we're guessing, or at least half guessing, and I would really love to understand more about this, because it's obviously a big comfort to Maggie, and I'd like to be able to understand her so I can help her in any way that I can. And that is the saga of the papers. I'm really trying to pinpoint and remember when the switch happened from little toys to papers, and it was so gradual that I don't really remember. I think it started around when she started school, because papers definitely weren't a thing before school started. So I think papers and school kind of went hand in hand. She started school, she started getting papers, and then she started carrying papers around when she started going to school. Before that it was toys. And toys were, you know, a little bit more socially acceptable, I think, for a kid to carry around toys, so people didn't think it was so weird if she had like a little mermaid doll in her hand all the time as a 6-year-old girl. Whereas papers, people think it looks a little bit weirder. But again, that really isn't my problem. Anyways, that is it for today. If you like this video, I'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in all things autism, we would love it if you'd hit subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow.